Hi, everyone. We hope you guys are having a phenomenal day out there. Thank you so much for joining us today. It is Mr. Tiska with you once again. And once again, I'm joined by the dependable Mrs. Kraft.
Hey, hey, hey.
And we also have the trailblazing Miss Hoff with us. Miss Hoff, how are you?
I'm excellent.
Perfect. So today we're going to be doing Chapter 7, Section 4. Now, the big idea for today, the development of political parties in the United States contributed to differing ideas about the role of the federal government.
The main ideas that we're going to talk about are the rise in political parties and how it created competition in the election of 1796. The XYZ affair caused problems for President John Adams, and controversy
That can't be.
Controversy broke out about the Alien and Sedition Acts. So, main idea 1. I think you're going to hear from some familiar friends. The rise of political parties created competition in the election of 1796.
So as George Washington warned us not to get involved in political parties, bam, they were already here. And I know that is Alexander Hamilton.
Boo!
Alexander Hamilton.
Boo!
That the Federalist Party is going to be in control because we believe in a strong federal government.
You mean a government that's likely to overpower the states? I am Thomas Jefferson, and I'm going to form the Democratic Republican Party, and we want to limit the power of the federal government. We also love farmers. Yay, farmers!
Oh, Lord. Farmers is not the way to do it. We need to have manufacturing. We need to take charge. We need to have this brand new baby that we created run it all. And we're going to put John Adams in charge. He's going to run against you, Mr. Jefferson.
Me? I'm going to seriously defeat him in that election. I am going to rack up all the votes. You know why? Because we support farmers and we support the French.
Wrong answer, because winner, chicken dinner was John Adams. He's the new president, and I don't care how much you don't like him, you're going to be his vice president.
Yeah, we'll see about that.
Well, see, we did. John Adams won the election, and indeed, as it was written in the original Constitution, whoever came in second in the election became the vice president. And that's right. You, Mr. Jefferson, did. And it's my understanding that you and he liked each other so much that when you asked him to go to France and hang out there, he said no, which meant you were stuck in America.
Ridiculous. Utterly ridiculous.
So, as president, John Adams has this incredibly hard task of following George Washington. And Adams was a leader of the leading patriot during the Revolutionary War, and later he becomes a foreign diplomat. He lacked some of Washington's dignity, but he was also respected for his hard work, his honesty, and his intelligence, though maybe Thomas Jefferson didn't think that.
And I got to say, I can't even imagine. George Washington was like a superhero. And all of a sudden, you go from having tall, impressive George Washington to John Adams, who was a rather little man. He was short and stout. So you had tall, lean superhero Washington, followed by the exact opposite in John Adams.
Little old John Adams.
A lot of people actually didn't like Adams because he wasn't as endearing as Washington, and some people even called him as cold as a lump of ice.
Ooh. Yikes.
But he had this amazing wife, Abigail Adams. So he must have done something right in his life, because Abigail Adams was the bomb.
Indeed she was. Main idea 2. The XYZ affair caused problems for President John Adams.
Yeah, one of President Adams' early goals as president was to improve the U.S. relations with France. Now, if you remember, France was actually involved in a war with Great Britain, and they really wanted the United States to help out because France had helped the United States out during the American Revolution. However, since the U.S. was a very brand new nation and wasn't very strong, President Washington at the time refused to help France. And that's when he created the Neutrality Proclamation and the United States is going to be neutral and all that. Fast forward a little bit to John Adams' presidency, and the relationship between the U.S. and the United States, the U.S. and France has actually gotten worse. So, in order to improve relations, President Adams is going to send 3 diplomats, 3 representatives, Elbridge Gerry, John Marshall, and Charles Pinckney, to France to meet with French Foreign Minister Talleyrand. And now, ladies and gentlemen,
the French will have nothing to do with the Americans. If they will not help us, we will not even speak with you.
I was going to say, I present you with French Foreign Minister Talleyrand.
Bonjour, monsieur.
Bonjour. So, the 3 diplomats, they go to France. They're hoping to meet with him. They're hoping to negotiate. But instead, they find 3 French agents there instead. Let's watch what happens.
So, the Americans would like to be nice with the French. We can make something work. Perhaps if you maybe pay us a little bit of the money, maybe say $250,000, then of course maybe we could also speak more about how you say we make a loan of $12 million. Then maybe we can speak with you about that treaty.
Wait, let's get this straight. You want us to give you $250,000 right off the bat, and you want the U.S. to pay you $12 million as a loan?
Yes. Oui, yes.
Are you crazy?
No, je ne crois que.
We are not interested at all. So, after this whole incident where these 3 French agents demand a bribe, the 3 diplomats, they return to the United States and they report on the situation to Congress. And when they report on the situation to Congress, here's Congress's reaction.
Millions for defense, but not 1 cent for tribute.
Basically, what Congress is saying is they don't mind spending extra money to improve the defense of the country, but they're not just going to pay someone just to bribe them to improve relations. Not going to happen at all.
Now, they called it the XYZ affair because they weren't even willing to give them names. So they just gave them letters and said, we're not even going to patronize this with any kind of formal thing. We're just going to call it the XYZ affair.
So as you can imagine, this whole incident made relations worse. Now, President Adams, to just prepare, just in case war breaks out, he decided to increase the size of the Navy, and he decided to create a standing peacetime army in the United States.
So Adams doesn't really want war with France, but obviously he's going to prepare in case that happens, which is what Mr. Tiska just talked about. And the Federalists were stunned by Adams' decisions not to go to war. What? What do you mean? American French ships began fighting in the Caribbean, and the United States and France eventually have to sign a treaty.
So even without us paying that bribe, we eventually get to the point where we have a treaty. And John Adams was smart not going to war. He definitely knew that George Washington was wise, and he warned us to stay out of it. And luckily for us, at that point, we did.
Phew. Main idea 3. Controversy broke out over the Alien and Sedition Acts.
Yeah, so even though Adams did the right thing by keeping the U.S. out of war and followed George Washington's policy, a lot of people in his political party, the Federalist Party, were very upset because a lot of people in his party actually wanted to go to war with France. And they didn't like the fact that there were all these people in the U.S. kind of speaking up for the French, and they didn't like the fact that there were a lot of French immigrants. So since the Federalists controlled Congress, they actually created a series of laws. And one of those laws was the Alien Act, which if you were an immigrant in the United States, you would have to wait 14 years in order to vote. They don't want anybody who would potentially support France having any influence over elections. So that's why they created the Alien Act, but they also created something called the Sedition Act.
Now, John Adams, as you could well imagine, was a little insecure in his own presidency. So he pushed to have something called the Sedition Act passed, which said that if you publish or voice any kind of criticism against the federal government or against the president, then you could be fined or go to jail. But what? But what? Speak up.
But what about the First Amendment?
Oh, First Amendment, Schmirst Amendment. We're not even thinking about that. What are you going to tell me, that you have certain rights?
Yeah. What about freedom of speech? What about freedom of the press?
Nope. You get no freedoms if John Adams is your president. So we're just squashing that whole idea. And of course, Mr. Jefferson, how do you feel about that?
I feel outraged. Completely outraged. This is a smear against the Constitution. This is a betrayal of the foundation of our country. So my friend Madison and I are going to do something about it.
They're going to make what's called the Kentucky and Virginia resolutions. So Jefferson and Madison write these resolutions passed by Kentucky and Virginia legislatures. These documents argued that the Alien Sedition Acts were what?
Unconstitutional.
And they supported the idea that the states could challenge the federal government.
Yes, state power.
Woot woot.
So after Madison and Jefferson created the Virginia and Kentucky resolutions and spread word throughout the country that the Alien and Sedition Acts were violations of the Constitution, slowly but surely, the majority of people started to agree with them. And then eventually, I'm going to give a little spoiler away, when Jefferson does become president and the Democratic Republicans control Congress, the Alien and Sedition Acts are allowed to expire. So they no longer exist or have any power in the U.S., obviously. But that's a story for another time. I believe that's it for us today. Mrs. Kraft, do you have anything else you want to add?
No, I had a great time. Thanks for inviting me.
Ms. Hoff, anything?
Nope. See you next time.
There's actually one thing I want to just mention real quick, just because I get this question a lot. The Democratic Republican Party that Jefferson created has nothing to do with the Democrat Party or the Republican Party of today. It's a completely separate party. So just keep that in mind. But anyway, guys, we'll talk to you soon. Have a great day. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.